Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Tesla's third quarter 2024 Q&A webcast. During this call, we will discuss our business outlook and make forward-looking statements. These comments are based on our predictions and expectations as of today. Actual events or results could differ materially due to a number of risks and uncertainties, including those mentioned in our most recent filings with the SEC.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Kilowatt, a podcast about electric vehicles, renewable energy, autonomous driving, and much, much more. My name is Bodhi, and I am your host. And without going into a lot of detail, I had a very bad week when it comes to technology and technology working. This will be the fourth time I've tried to record the show. By the way, today, if you haven't guessed, we're going to talk about Tesla's Q3 2024 earnings call. I actually had the notes done for this show and the clips already picked out on Wednesday. And then Thursday, I had technical issues. Friday, I had technical issues. At one point in time, I was having some internet issues. And I was like, you know what? I think my modem's going bad because I've had to restart it over and over again for the last couple of days. So I'm going to go buy a new modem. And it turns out, folks, that my internet was just out. For my internet company, and when I went to set up my new modem, I was unable to. I actually had to go return the new modem and get another new modem to get everything to work. And at like 10 o'clock on Friday, everything worked, but I continue to have technical issues. I'm just not going to go into all the problems. It was a very, very frustrating week technically. So I say all that to say this. I am very sorry that you were getting this on a Sunday instead of Thursday morning like I had planned. I also had problems with the mic. I've had problems with my computer, which is new. I've had problems with I tried using my lavalier mics, had issues with those. It's just sometimes when you're doing anything really, but in terms of podcasting, sometimes you just run into issues that no matter how hard you try to overcome, you bring new ones into the fold. You might solve one problem and then you bring new problems into the fold. Hopefully today will be the fourth and final time I attempt to record this episode. But again, I apologize that it is so late. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump into Tesla's Q3 2024 earnings call. Right out of the gate, I should let you know, this is not a typical earnings call. This largely is an extension of Tesla's 10/10 event, which is their We Robot Robotaxi event. And it's not truly an earnings call in the truest sense of an earnings call. So I'm gonna let you listen to it. We're gonna listen to this together. But I have a theory, and in my theory goes like this. Actually, is when a company has maybe not the best news to give, or does not want to get hard questions from analysts, they extend the CEO's opening remarks. They extend the CFO's opening remarks. They'll take investor questions, and then they leave the analyst very little time to answer questions. Now, I'm not saying that's what Tesla did, but they only took questions from two analysts, and that was it. All of the other questions were from investors. And they all kind of sort of had to do with the Robotaxi event, or at least Elon and the team brought it back to the Robotaxi event. So let's go ahead and start with Elon's opening remarks. I will warn you, the audio is awful. The room noise is fine. You can't really hear a lot going on in the room, but Elon's voice, the bass in his voice makes it kind of muddled and muddy and kind of hard to hear. I tried to clean it up as best as I could. I just wanted you to be aware of that before we start. Have your best listening ears on. Let's start off with our first clip, which is Elon's opening remarks. I did not, because he did speak for a while, I did not include all of his opening remarks, just the parts that I thought were important to this show.
So to recap, someone saying something that automotive industry are seeing year-over-year declines in order volumes in Q3. Tesla at the same time has achieved record deliveries. In fact, I think if you look at EV companies worldwide, to the best of my knowledge, no EV company is even profitable. And I'm not, to the best of my knowledge, there's no EV division of any company, of any existing auto company that is profitable. So it is notable that Tesla is profitable despite a very challenging automotive environment. And this quarter actually is a record Q3 for us.
All right. Congratulations to Tesla and the team for having a record Q3. I do want to address the comment of Tesla being the only profitable EV company out there. That might be true. I'm not going to look it up. It really doesn't matter, to be honest with you. But here's the thing. Tesla's been doing it the longest. They are, in terms of EVs, not in terms of car companies in general, but in terms of EVs, they are the legacy automaker. They started the company in 2003. They didn't have their first full year of profitability until 2020. Now, they had quarters where they were profitable, but the actual first full year profitability didn't come until 2020. Just for a point of reference, 2003, obviously they didn't sell a car in 2003, but they first delivered their very first car in 2008. Now, why is this relevant, or why am I bringing this up? Because there was a time when all of these companies during earnings calls or whatever were pointing out, yeah, Tesla's doing some interesting things, but they're not profitable. And it remains to see if they will. It remains to be seen if they will be profitable. I'm only bringing this up because until 2020, or right around that time period, that was the narrative used when they talked about Tesla. So why would you draw that same comparison once you're on top? Or why would you make those same analogies once you're on top? Like, yeah, you probably are the only EV company that's profitable. Yeah, in the United States. I mean, if you compare, BYD might be profitable. I don't know. I don't think NIO is profitable. XPeng in China might be profitable. Like, there might be some EV divisions that are profitable outside of the United States. Here in the US, probably not, right? I'm just saying, like, this was the narrative when you wanted to dismiss Tesla between 2008 and, 2020. Yeah, but they haven't turned a profit. Yeah, but they haven't turned a profit. Well, they were doing some really interesting things in autonomous driving. Yeah, but they haven't turned a profit. Talk to me when they do this. So for Elon to use this same rhetoric against other EV companies, there's some poetic justice in there, but there's also some schadenfreude, and maybe be the bigger person and take the win without crowing about it. You know what I mean? All right, let's continue with the clip here.
So we produced our 7th million vehicle actually just yesterday. So congratulations to the teams that made it happen at Tesla. That's the staggeringly immense amount of work to make 7 million cars. Let's see. And we also have the energy storage business is growing like wildfire with strong demand for both Megapack and Powerwall. And as people know, on October 10th, we laid out a vision for an autonomous and electric future that I think is very compelling. The Tesla team did a phenomenal job there with actually giving people an opportunity to experience the future, where you have humanoid robots walking among the crowd, not canned video presentation or anything, but literally walking among the crowd, serving drinks and whatnot. And we had 50 autonomous vehicles. There were 20 Cybercabs, but there were an additional 30 Model Ys operating fully autonomously the entire night, carrying thousands of people with no incidents the entire night. So, and for those who went there, it's worth emphasizing that the Cybercab had no steering wheel or brake or accelerator pedals. Meaning there was no way for anyone to intervene manually, even if they wanted to. And the whole night went very smoothly.
All right, let's start with Optimus. I asked last week if anyone else thought that Optimus was controlled by a human, or at least influenced by a human when it was out at the We Robot event serving drinks and giving gift bags out and interacting with the crowd. And I got a lot of feedback. I unfortunately, because of how long this actual episode's going to run, I can't run through everybody's, like I would have liked to, everybody's comments on this. But the general consensus is, yeah, there was probably some human interaction, especially the operators that had the hand controller. And then on the other side, the voices seemed like maybe they were a little bit too realistic instead of, what we would know to be AI generated voices. Over time, we're going to find out, if there was some sort of manipulation going on and Elon's not being 100% honest, or we'll say Tesla's not being 100% honest with the presentation, some employee is going to get upset, fired, or whatever, and we'll hear about it. It's just going to take a while before that happens. All right, before we move to our other clips, I should just give you some things that I didn't include. First up, more affordable vehicles coming in 2025. Now, we'll hear more about this later again, but that doesn't mean the $25,000 or $30-ish thousand vehicle that Tesla promised when they announced the Gigafactory. It seems, from what I can interpret, that means that Tesla's current vehicles will be lower cost. So, I mean, that's great. Listen, that's not disappointing. We want more affordable vehicles for sure. But and we'll get to that. You know what? I'm going to stop. I have more to say on this, but I'll stop because we're going to talk about that in a little bit. Cybercab production. Elon feels confident that they can hit 2 million units a year eventually, and possibly 4 million units per year. Elon's very bullish on Cybercab, and it seems like they are definitely they're definitely, I'm not going to say they're betting the company. They are putting a lot of emphasis on Cybercab. Like I don't know, maybe a year ago, Elon started talking about what a lot of people don't understand is that, Tesla is an AI company. And with this earnings call, he's bringing a lot of that same energy with Cybercab. And you're going to hear it in the clips that we're going to hear today. In terms of training AI, Tesla is continuing to expand capacity, and they are not compute constrained at the moment. Tesla Energy is improving. And someone asked, what's going on with the Tesla Roadster? The final design has not been approved. It doesn't sound like it's a huge priority for them, even though, they announced it, what was it, back in 2019, or maybe even sooner than. I think it was with Tesla Semi, they announced it. And some people put $5,000 down, and I think it was like another $20,000 to reserve it. So I'm sure some people would really like that vehicle to, come out. They would really appreciate that, but it's not going to be a huge moneymaker for them. It's not going to be a high volume product. Therefore, in my opinion, it's not a high priority at this moment. Elon, I can't remember if I included a clip or not. Elon did make reference of the, Tesla Roadster levitating on some level, or flying. We'll see. I don't necessarily think that that's the best way to go with a with a high dollar sports car, but we'll see what Tesla does there. All right, let's go ahead and move on to our next clip, which is about autonomy.
So, with respect to autonomy, as people are experiencing in the cars, really from week to week, there are significant improvements in the miles between interventions. So with the
the new version 12.5, the release of Full Self-Driving and Cybertruck, the combining the code into a single stack so that the city driving and the end-to-end highway driving are one stack, which is a big improvement for the highway driving. So it's just all neural nets, and the release of actually Smart Summon. We try to have a sense of humor here at TEF. And we're also, so that's 12.5. Version 13 of FSD is going out soon. Ashok will elaborate more on that later in the call. We expect to see roughly a 5 or 6 fold improvement in miles between interventions compared to 12.5. And actually, looking at the year as a whole, the improvement in miles between interventions, we think will be at least 3 orders of magnitude. So that's a very dramatic improvement in the course of the year, and we expect that trend to continue next year. So like the current internal expectation, internal expectation for the Tesla FSD having longer miles between intervention than human is the second quarter of next year, which means it may end up being the third quarter, but it's next. It seems extremely likely to be next year. Sure, do you want to say anything about that?
Yeah, when measuring miles between critical interventions, like you mentioned, Elon, we already made a 100x improvement with 12.5 from starting of this year, and then with V13 release, we expect to be 1000x from the beginning, from January of this year on my production release software. And this came in because of technology improvements, going to end-to-end, having higher frame rate, partly also helped by hardware force, more capabilities, so on. And we hope that we continue to scale the neural network, the data, the training compute, etc. By Q2 next year, we should cross over the average human miles per critical intervention, or like collision in that case.
I mean, that is just unvarnished our internal estimate.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's no sandbagging or anything else. Our internal estimate is Q2 of next year to be safer than human, and then to continue with rapid improvements thereafter.
Hasn't Elon said in the past that it's already safer than a human? Am I wrong on that? Did I misunderstand his statements earlier? I'm genuinely curious because I thought he had already said that this was the case when it's activated. All right. In terms of interventions, I read an article, and I can't remember where I read this. It was recent when I was preparing for last week's show, or last episode, which I guess is last week now. The article basically said that Tesla needs 100,000 miles between interventions before they can release Robotaxi. That was the author's thought, or maybe they interviewed some experts. I don't know. But I don't think this is the case. Waymo vans still have plenty of issues, and I don't think those vehicles are seeing 100,000 miles between interventions. And granted, GM Cruise and Waymo are geofenced, so they aren't, cruising all over the country. They're only in specific areas. I still think Tesla's going to be geofenced, and I don't think they're going to be able to just step out and go wherever they want with their Robotaxi service. It's going to be, in my opinion, a much slower rollout than what Elon is presenting in this earnings call. And I don't think he's done anything just yet. We'll get to that point. And then as a personal note, I have the trial version of the latest FSD, and it's really good. I've used it on most of my drives. I don't ever think to use it until I'm actually driving, but I use it on most of my drives. So it's not the first thing that I go to when I get in my car, but usually when I'm at a light, I'm like, oh, I could put in an address and actually let the car take me there. And it's really good. Not good enough for me to shell out $100 or $8,000 a month to do something I already know how to do, especially since I only have hardware 3 or AI 3, whatever Elon and Tesla's calling it these days. But it's pretty good. Pretty good. I'm very impressed with it. Like, I didn't have necessarily a positive review of it the last time I had the trial. And this time, I can see major improvements. It does not scare me nearly as much as it did before. It still does some weird edge casey things, but by and large, I'm quite happy with it. It's really good. So I still don't think it's level 3 good. And Elon wants to get to level 5 soon, which, let's go ahead and just toss to that clip, because he's going to talk about how the vast majority of humans don't understand that Teslas can drive themselves.
Vast majority of humanity has no idea that Teslas can drive themselves. So, especially for something like a Model 3 or Model Y, it looks like a normal car. So you don't expect a normal car to be able to be intelligent enough to drive itself. The Cybercab looks different. Cybertruck looks different, but Model Y and Model 3 they're good-looking cars, but they look fairly normal. So you don't expect a fairly normal-looking car to have the intelligence, enough AI to be able to drive itself, but it does. So we do want to expose that to more people, and so we're doing, every time we have a significant improvement in the software, we'll roll out another sort of 30-day trial. So to encourage people to try it again. And we are seeing a significant improvement in adoption. So the take rate for FSD has improved substantially, especially after the 1010 event. So there's no need to wait for Robotaxi or Cybercab to experience full autonomy. We expect to achieve that next year with our existing vehicle lineup.
When you say your existing vehicle line, are you talking about the vehicles that you're building today? Or are you talking about the vehicles that you built 4 years ago? I have a feeling you're talking about the vehicles you're talking about today. I'm not sure that that's true either, but yeah, that is a similar statement that Elon makes on a regular basis of we should be able to achieve full autonomy by next year. Now, I will say, based on the experience that I've had with full self-driving trial, it's really good. I haven't tried actual smart summon yet. I'm a little nervous to do that in a parking lot, so I'll have to find myself in an empty parking lot, maybe early in the morning or later in the evening, where I can feel comfortable to try that feature. But yeah, that seems ambitious for sure. And then when it comes to his original statement of the vast majority of humans have no idea Teslas can drive himself, that's simply not true. Like, my friends are dumb. Like, they are dum-dums to the top order. Like, they are dumb. I can't even express it. Think of your dumbest person you know. Maybe not your friend. The dumbest person you know. I guarantee you my friends are dumber. Hands down. They are just absolute troglodytes. Just knuckle dragon morons, right? They know that Teslas can kind of drive themselves. And they don't know that simply because of me, because they tell me, well, it can drive itself. And I have to say, can't drive itself, but it does pretty good in certain situations. Like, I have to correct them. But they know, they're like, well, I should buy a Tesla. It drives itself. And you know what? That in the last probably 2 years, that those comments have maybe died down a little bit. But they know that that's. Oh, sorry, I'm not going to get upset. You've been spouting that Teslas can drive themselves for so long, as if they could, Mr. Musk, that people think that they can. Like, that the vast majority of humans know that Teslas have some sort of autonomous driving features. I will say the vast majority of humans probably have no idea that the Ford Mach-E or the F-150 Lightning has similar features, or the Polestar 3 have similar features to Tesla. I would be willing to bet that when people buy a Mach-E, or let's just say, because you have to go to the dealer and go through the whole process, when you get that demonstration from the dealer when you're test driving a Mach-E, I'd be willing to bet a significant number of buyers like, I didn't know it could do this. This is pretty cool. Like, Elon says things in a way sometimes, and again, I'm not an Elon hater here, but he says things in a way sometimes that is just out of touch. Again, my dumb friends know that there's autonomous features in Teslas. Whether or not they know what the actual capabilities are, or they either they overrate the capabilities or underrate it, depending on what their opinion of Elon is, that's irrelevant. They know that the cars have the technology to do it. Just drives me crazy. Also, I would like to know what the take rate is for FSD, because I think it's great since the 1010 event that the take rate went up. But what is it compared to 2023, 2021, 2022? Is it mostly people subscribing or people shelling out the $8,000? Like, what are we doing here? Like, if it's a significant increase, what does that mean? Because if the increase, let's just say the take rate was 1%, and it's probably much higher than this, but I'm just going to say 1% for an example. And now the take rate is 3%. That is a significant increase, but it's not necessarily a significant improvement or impact on Tesla. So I would like to have more information on that. And I think if the numbers were good enough, Tesla would share that information, but I don't think they're good enough. And that's why they're not sharing. And they're being a little cagey about it. And then my final rant here. And listen, I don't know why I'm so fired up about this earnings call, but even listening back to it with you right now, because I'm listening to all of these clips, even though I've already wrote the notes on them and stuff, just to have maybe a fresh perspective, things like this still irritate me. You'd think after a couple of days of letting it sit, it wouldn't irritate me as much, but they do. They do. Let's move on to our next clip, which is ride hailing.
And we have for Tesla employees in the Bay Area, we already are offering a ride hailing capability. So you can actually use with the development app, you can request a ride, and it'll take you anywhere in the Bay Area. We do have a safety driver for now, but the software required to do that. We've developed. And I mean, David, do you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, sure. It's David. We showed some screenshots of this in the Q1 shareholder deck, and this is real. We've been testing it for the part of the year, and the building blocks that we needed in order to build this functionality and deliver it to production, we've been thinking about and working on for years. It just so happens that we've used those building blocks to deliver great features for our customers in the meantime, such as sharing your profile, synchronizing it across cars so that every single car that you jump into, whether it's another car that you own or a car that somebody's loaned to you or a rental car that you jump into, it looks exactly like yours. Everything's synchronized, seat mirror positions, media, navigation, everything is the same. Just what you would expect from one of our Robotaxis. But we gave that functionality to our customers right now because we built it intending for it to be used in the future. Releasing that functionality now. All the end-to-end cybersecurity that we knew we were going to need to deliver that functionality, sending a navigation to destination from your phone to the vehicle. And so, you're doing that now with the ride-hailing app, but it's something that we've made available to customers for years. Seeing the progress on a route in the mobile app, that's something you'll need for the ride-hailing app, but again, we released it in the meantime. So it's not like we're just starting to think about this stuff right now while we're building out, the early stages of our ride-hailing network. We've been thinking about this for quite a long time, and we're excited to get the functionality out there.
Yeah, and we do expect to roll out ride-hailing in California, Texas next year to the public. The California is somewhat, there's quite a long regulatory approval process. it shouldn't. I think we should get approval next year, but it's contingent upon regulatory approval. Texas is a lot faster, so it's. I'd say like we'll definitely have it available in Texas, and probably have it available in California, subject to regulatory approval, and then and maybe some other states actually next year as well, but at least California and Texas.
All right. I feel like I've hit the regulatory stuff really hard over the last couple of weeks, so I'm not going to spend too much time talking about this. Ride hailing in the Bay Area for employees, I think this is great. Other than testing out the app and maybe getting some extra information for full self-driving, this isn't a lot different than somebody who has their Tesla on Uber, goes and picks somebody up, types in the address into their car, and lets the car take them to, of course they're driving, but the car takes them to whatever they're trying to go, right? Tesla doesn't need any sort of approval on this because, one, they're using employees, so it's internal testing. They're using probably maybe a version or two ahead of what's publicly released in terms of full self-driving. But this seems like it's more to test out the app and less to really get the regulatory approval that they need, right? I think maybe that'll make it a little bit faster, but I don't see a big difference between this and if I was to put my car on Uber and drive around with full self-driving on, dropping people off and going to pick them up. I don't see a lot of difference between the two. Next up, we have an Optimus clip.
And then with Optimus, we showed a massive improvement in Optimus's dexterity and movement on October 10th, and our next gen hand and forearm, which has 22 degrees of freedom, which is double the prior hand and forearm. It's extremely human-like. It also has much better tactile sensing. It's really I feel confident saying that we have the most advanced humanoid robot by a long shot. And we're moreover the only company that really has all of the ingredients necessary to scale of humanoid robots. Because the things that what other companies are missing is that they're missing the AI brain, and they're missing the ability to really scale to very high volume production. So you sometimes see some impressive video demos, but they lack the localized AI and the ability to scale volume to very high numbers. As I've said on a few occasions before, I think Optimus will ultimately be the most valuable part of it. I think it has a good chance of being the most valuable product ever made.
Nothing snarky to add here. Let's move on to our investor questions, which this first question and the second question that you're going to hear is going to be more or less the same question, but I'm going to play them one at a time and then we'll talk about it.
Is Tesla still on track to deliver the more affordable model next year, as mentioned by Elon earlier? And how does it align with your AI product roadmap?
Sure. I mean, as Elon and Vaibhav both said, our plan to meet that in the first half of next year. Our mission has always been to lower the cost of our vehicles to increase the adoption of sustainable energy and transport. Part of that is lowering the cost of our current vehicles, which is where all of the personally owned vehicles that we sell today come in. But the next stage in that, really, as it fits into AI roadmap, is when we bring in Robotaxis, which lowers the initial cost of getting into an EV. And that's really where we see the marriage of the EV roadmap and the AI roadmap.
Yeah, it'll be like with incentives sub 30K, which is kind of a key threshold.
Okay, I would say that wasn't a very good answer. It wasn't very straightforward. Maybe the next question will be more straightforward and we'll get a definitive answer on this.
Similar question next. When can we expect Tesla to give us the $25,000 non-Robotaxi regular car model?
We're not making it on
Yeah, all our vehicles today are
Yes,
Robotaxis.
I think we've made very clear that we're the future is autonomous. I mean, it's going to be, and I actually said this many years ago, but that in my strong belief, and I believe that is panning out to be true, so, and it'll be very obvious in retrospect, is that the future is autonomous electric vehicles, and non-autonomous gasoline vehicles in the future will be like riding a horse and using a flip phone. It's not that there are no horses. Yeah, there are some horses, but they're unusual.
I'm going to interrupt
they're
real
niche.
quick here. What the
and,
person was asking is, when are you going to offer the $25,000 car that you said was going to happen last year when you announced the factory in Mexico? That's what they're asking.
So
when can a person buy
a lot of
a
automotive
car
companies, most
that
automotive companies
has
have
a
not
steering wheel and pedals
internalized
that
this,
comes
which
from
is
Tesla,
surprising.
and it
We've been
costs
shouting this from the rooftops
$25,000
for such a long time,
right?
and
This
it
is
will
not
accrue to their detriment in
like
the
the
future.
person who is asking this question is one an investor.
but
So when they
all of
laughed
our
at him
vehicles,
and they're like,
which
"Well,
will
you
be
people just don't understand."
autonomous.
That's somebody who
Yeah,
invested
sorry.
in your company
All
and
of
they're
our
a
vehicles that
customer. So maybe don't
we've really
talk
made,
down
all the
to
7
them
million
because they're
vehicles,
not,
vast majority are capable
they're
of
not
autonomy.
in your internal meetings. They
and,
don't live and breathe
we're currently
Tesla.
making
Like
on the order of
that's
35,000
again,
autonomous vehicles a week.
Paul got me fired up.
If you compare that to say
People have
Waymo's
lives.
entire fleet,
They
it's
don't.
less than
They don't
they're less than
spend
1,000
every
cars.
waking minute. Most
We
people
make 35K a
thinking
week.
about Tesla
Yeah, not
and what
cars
they're
look
doing.
normal.
They want to know,
Yeah,
hey,
they
can I
mostly look
buy a
normal.
$25,000 car
Cybertruck
that
is
Tesla makes
thankfully,
when it'll probably be really good? Great. When can I get that? Because you said it was going to be
and then the
built.
Cybercab,
Why are you
Robotaxi.
like, if you
we
changed your
wanted to have
plans,
something
just tell
futuristic.
people you changed your
That's not
plans.
futuristic.
Stop talking in all this like vague mumbo jumbo. Just say, hey, listen, we're not going to release that car that we talked about. It's going to be Cybercab. Fine. But to my knowledge, they have not said anything about that. And by the way, the 7 million Teslas that are on the road today are not all capable of autonomy, and we'll get to that a little bit later, but they're just not. So stop saying that nonsense. But it's really the part of it is the smug answer to an investor and a customer that really irritates me. Not everybody wants to put their car on the Robotaxi network. People might want let's just say people want a steering wheel and a pedal in a car that costs $25,000. When can they get that? Never? Great. Next year? Great. Whether or not you're building 35 autonomous vehicles per week or vehicles that are capable of autonomous driving is irrelevant if you don't have the software to make those cars autonomous. Right now, we're at level 2. Some people might say level 2 plus. That is a marketing term that's not real. Right now, we're at level 2. And I think Tesla is very close to level 3. I do not think they're that close to level 4 in terms of what they've released, right? So let's be honest. Like, this is the thing that irritates me to no end about Tesla. What they have done is nothing short of amazing when it comes to autonomous driving. When they talk about it, however, they phrase it in such a way that is, and this is mostly Elon, is grandiose, more grandiose than it is. And they overstate capabilities. And I think that, quite frankly, hurts their brand. I don't think this is a good answer. I would like to see them say, hey, listen, we were going to build a vehicle that would cost around, and initially, am I wrong here? Didn't it say, weren't they saying $25,000? And we decided that it's better to go this direction. And in a roundabout way, they kind of did say that, but they didn't. So let's go ahead and listen to the rest of the clip, and then I'll catch you on the other side.
It's worth noting with respect to the Cybercab, it's actually not just a revolution in vehicle design, but a revolution in vehicle manufacturing that is also coming with the Cybercab. The cycle time, like the units per per hour of the Cybercab line. It is like, this is just really something special. I mean, this is probably half order of magnitude better than other car manufacturing lines. Like not in the same league is what I'm saying. Not in the same league. So it's and I said like several years ago that maybe the hottest Tesla product copy will be the factory. You can't just like buy a factory.
You can't reverse engineer a factory. You just have to buy it.
Yeah, it's like it's we're rapidly evolving in manufacturing technology. So anyway, there's like basically I think having a regular 25K model is pointless.
Yeah,
it would be silly. Like it would be completely at odds with what we believe.
In an autonomous world, what matters is the lowest cost per mile of efficiency of that vehicle, and that's what we've done with the Robotaxi.
Exactly, autonomous. It's fully considered cost per mile is what matters. And if you try to make a car that is, essentially a hybrid manual automatic car, it's not going to be as good as a dedicated autonomous car. So yeah, Cybercab is just not going to have steering wheels and pedals. It's fully designed optimized for autonomy. No, it'll cost on the order of cost roughly 25K. So it is a 25K car, and you will be able to buy one on it exclusively if you want. So just won't have steering wheel and pedals if you don't need them.
I agree with Elon when he says that the what they've built in terms of the factories, right? What they have going on is unparalleled. Like you look at GM and Ford and some of these other companies and all the trouble they're having with manufacturing. Volkswagen is another one. They tried to take a internal combustion engine factory in some cases or processes, we'll say, and just translate that over to an electric vehicle because they thought it would be easier, less parts. This should be no problem. Much of the car is the same. Yeah, not the case. That's not the case. It didn't happen that way. So I think Tesla's done something really amazing in this regard. I am a little concerned with how optimistic they are with Cybercab and autonomous driving. Not to say that I think the company is going to go out of business or anything like that, but it does seem like there's a lot of they're putting their eggs in a very specific basket, and I'm going to talk about that here in just a little bit in a different clip. But why would you risk your company when right now it's going to be a very small part of your business, right? I think we went over this on the when we talked about the 1010 event. If Tesla's operating a Cybercab and that Cybercab cost about 20 cents a mile to operate, and they're charging 40 cents a mile to operate, and maybe they'll charge more because they'll realize this is way too low of a number. That means they're only getting 20 cents a mile in profit, right? That means they have to drive to make $2,000 or $200 a day. They have to drive 1,000 miles. That's a lot of driving. In Phoenix, that would be a tremendous amount of driving, and we are very spread apart, and we have freeways where you could drive from one end of the Phoenix to the other in traffic or out of traffic, and you can get from one side to the other. It takes a while, but you could definitely do it here. LA would be a little bit different, right? It would take much longer to go to the same distance in certain times of the day, but that's a lot. Like if you're thinking, well, I have 300 vehicles in this area at $200 a day, and it's probably more like $150 or $100 a day. That's not a lot of money per vehicle. And it's just not. So I genuinely don't know what the thought process is here. in terms of why this is going to make them so much money, there's only so much driving that can be done. Some people are not going to want to ride in a Tesla because it's autonomous, like in a Cybercab because it's autonomous. Some people aren't going to do it because Elon is a part of the company. And you might be thinking, well, I'm talking about Democrats here. I know plenty of Republicans that don't like Elon either. I know plenty of Republicans that don't really like the fact that there are electric vehicles on the road. You know, it's not a like the Volkswagen. One of my closest friends in the world. I don't know if he's a Republican or not, actually. And I've known this guy for 17 years. I know kind of what his politics are, but I don't know how he votes. He's my like one of my 3 best friends in the entire world. And I still don't know entirely what his politics are, right? I know how he feels on a lot of things, but politics, I could kind of guess one way or the other, but it's not something we talk about a whole lot, right? We were hanging out and I said, "Hey, do you remember the Scout? You know, the vehicle, the Scout. There was an SUV and a truck." And he's like, "Yeah, I love that car." I was like, "Great. They're coming out with new versions." He's like, "Oh, that's amazing." And I showed him. He's like, "These look great, but they look like electric vehicles." And I said, "They are electric vehicles." And he goes, "Oh man." He's like, "That just ruined the whole car." I was like, "Do you like the way they look?" Because he was commenting on the interior and stuff. And he's like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Why does it matter that they're electric?" And he's a diehard um, motorhead. And, you know, he wants the rumble and the shake of an internal combustion engine. My point in this is to say that just because you create something does not mean that people are automatically going to use it because you're a big name in a certain space. This could easily blow up in Tesla's face. This could also be a huge success, but they have 2 years to make it into something, whether it blows up in their face or it's a success, because that's their timeline, right? They have 2 years to actually get it done. And then they probably have another 2 years, maybe 3 years after that to make it successful. And if they can't do that in the 5 or 6 years that's lined out there, they're probably, even if they are successful at it eventually, that's going to be a really hard thing to overcome, that initial failure. And in a lot of people's minds, it will be a failure. Let's take a breather from Robotaxi and Cybercab and talk a little bit about improving service center times.
The next question is, what is Tesla doing to alleviate long wait times at service centers?
So we aim on solving problems at the source, so at the factory, before they can even affect our customers. We believe the best service is no service, and
Yeah, it really is.
don't even have them do.
If the car doesn't break,
Yeah, exactly.
that's the best thing.
Don't see anyone with the Tesla shirt. You either do it fix the issue upstream, or do it remotely, do it through software. They can be at work or at home, and the car can be parked, and we fix the issue. And we've partnered the field with service to make sure we're looking at the same issues. And additionally, just in Q3 and Q4 of this year alone, we have opened and will open in total at nearly 70 locations. And in North America, we significantly expanded the size of each location and have doubled the size last year compared to this year.
Yeah, I think it's like actually a lot of merits to having large service centers, because you can have specialization of labor. You can start to approach. Yeah, it should be more factory like. Where you can have dedicated lanes for particular types of service, and it's way easier for somebody to become expert in a few different types of repairs than in every repair.
Exactly. This has helped us with the base that these heavy repairs, like clogging up the lane. They've dedicated lanes for different type of repairs, and so it's throughput matters and really treating it like a factory.
Yeah, this is where Tesla's structure, I think, Tesla has a structural advantage relative to the rest of the auto industry, because we make the cars and we service the cars, whereas I think there's a bit of a conflict of interest with the dealer model and the sort of traditional OEM and dealer model, where the dealerships make most of their money on service, and so they obviously are disincented to reduce the servicing cost.
Yeah.
Whereas in our case, we are incented to reduce the servicing cost because we carry that servicing cost, and we've got a good feedback with our cars.
The master.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like we review with the factory, with the service leaders together, and send people from the factories to the field and field
Yeah.
to the factory to see it firsthand.
Exactly.
Provide suggestions for manufacturing as well as for engineering on design.
Yeah, so I view this as a fundamental structural advantage of Tesla versus the rest of the auto industry.
Also doing a bunch of work on the software side, not only to automate, diagnostics, so identifying, what needs to be done to a car before it comes into service, but also automating all of the preparation work and aligning all the resources that are necessary in order for the car to be very efficiently worked on once it arrives. So
The parts are there, like the lift is scheduled, the technician's scheduled, like everything.
Like a car says, this is what's wrong with me, and tell the service center,
The car has
everything ready in advance.
yeah, please fix me, and this is what's wrong.
yeah, this is what I recommend you do now. This is what I recommend you.
Yes.
instead of customer trying to translate the cars telling us directly, and we're pulling that. Yeah,
Yeah, you don't need, most of the time you don't need to diagnose the car
exactly.
when it arrives. The car, this is like, again,
You
a
prep the car.
fundamental technology advantage and structural advantage compared to the rest of the auto industry. It's
I think it's underappreciated as to what all we are able to do.
Yeah.
And that's why, because like you said before, most of our cars, except for Cybertruck, look the same.
Yeah.
Right? So people don't realize that it has so much capability.
yeah. They look better than other cars, but they're not like obviously like super futuristic.
Yes.
I think this was a reasonable answer. The bro-y way that they all jumped in and answered it made me just want to scream out, start a podcast. I'll be the first subscriber, but let's not do this at a Tesla event. If you guys want to talk over each other and talk about how great your product is, great. Go for it. Start a podcast. But the way they answer this question makes me think that they just sit around all day smelling each other's armpits and saying, good game. And that's it. That's a meeting. That's a whole meeting is, hey, we're going to book an hour. We're going to smell each other's armpits. We're going to slap each other on the butt and we're going to say good game. And then we're going to walk out and we're going to do whatever we're going to do after that. Like, come on. Anyway, maybe I'm being overly persnickety on this. Let's move on to our next clip. And we're getting close. I think we got 2 more clips left.
Elon mentioned unsupervised FSD in California and Texas next year. Does that mean regulators have agreed to it in the entire state for existing hardware 3 and 4 vehicles?
No, as I said earlier, California loves regulation.
But they have a pathway.
Yeah, I mean, there's a pathway. Obviously, Waymo operates in California, so there's just a lot of forms to fill out and a lot of approvals that are required. I mean, I'd be shocked if we don't get approval next year, but it's just not something we totally control. But I think we will get approval next year in California and Texas, and towards the end of the year, it will branch out beyond California and Texas.
I mean, I think it's important to reiterate this, like homologating or certifying a vehicle at the federal level in the US is done by meeting FMVSS regulations. All our vehicles today that are produced that are autonomous capable meet all those regulations. The Cybercab will meet those regulations. And so the deployment of the vehicle to the road is not a limitation. What is a limitation is what you said at the state level, where they control autonomous vehicle deployment. Some states are relatively easy, as you mentioned, for Texas.
Yeah.
And so other ones have pathways, like California, that may take a little longer. Other ones haven't set up anything yet. And so we will work through those state by state. And
I do think we should have a federal.
I agree.
Like the autonomous vehicles should be approved. It should be possible to.
Congress, if you're listening, let's get a federal AV.
There should be a federal approval process for autonomous vehicles. I mean, that's how the FMVSS is
Started and worked.
federal motor vehicle. The FMVSS is federal.
Yeah. So, I mean, in 2017 and 18, it's when regulators started looking at it, and it's really kind of stalled since then, but we would appreciate and would support helping out with those regulations.
It really needs to be like a national approval is important. If there's a Department of Government Efficiency, I'll try to help make that happen. And do it for everyone, not just Tesla, obviously. But we like some things in the US are state by state regulated, like for example, insurance. It's incredibly painful to do it state by state, 50 states. And I think there should be a national approval process for autonomy.
You know what? I do agree with that with some caveats, right? The United States is such a huge country with such a diverse topography and, the weather and all the things that go with that. I think having a national standard for approval would probably not be the greatest thing ever, because with what works, let's just say where regulators happen to be in Washington, D.C., may not work so great in Nevada up around Lake Tahoe area, which if you've ever driven around Lake Tahoe, there's some switchbacks and it's really high and there's not always guardrails and it's a little sketchy up there. May not be the best place to be testing autonomous driving, like driverless cars with passengers in it. That might not be the best road to do this on. But I do think that there needs to be some minimum standard that needs to be met. And states could either say, we're going to meet this minimum standard, or we're going to add to it, or we're going to increase it, but no state can go below it. I think that's important. And I do agree with the regulatory, we have tons of regulations here in the United States, and we probably do everywhere, in the world, right? Everybody's probably got tons of regulations. There are probably reasons to have those regulations today, but maybe in 10 years, that regulation is outdated and needs to be updated or needs to be just removed. Like, I don't know how often that happens here in the United States, but it does seem like we hold on to regulations for a really long time. And some of the ones that maybe don't make sense for a specific industry, and I mean truly don't make sense, not because it makes it hard for that industry and they're like, nah, this is a silly regulation. I'm saying, like, objectionably, it makes it hard for this industry to move on and be progressive. I think those regulations should be looked at and either amended or gotten rid of. I don't know what the process is for that, but I do wonder if Elon's accelerated timeline on Robotaxi and autonomous driving has anything to do with the fact that he thinks Donald Trump is going to be the next president of the United States. And Donald Trump has already said that, he would put Elon in charge of going through regulations and cutting regulations. And whether or not you think that's a great idea or a bad idea, or you want Donald Trump to be president, I don't really care. I don't care who anyone votes for, whether you vote for Trump, Harris, Oliver Stein. You could vote for Justin Robert Young's mom, Gloria Young, if you really wanted to. That we can all be friends. Like that part. I'm not trying to bring politics into this, other than to say that if Elon thinks that he has a friend and ally in the White House, and that regulations would be reduced and made easier for his businesses to run, he might feel that these timelines are realistic, whereas other people maybe don't feel like they're realistic, right? But this earnings call has been so bizarre and full of talk of future capabilities as if they're here now. I can't help but thinking that Elon's counting his chickens before they hatch. Again, like, I think regulation is good, but needs to be reviewed and updated on a somewhat regular basis. Just to give you an idea on this, when you become an EMT, you have to take a national registry test, right? So I am technically, once I pass that test, I am technically eligible to go to any state and become an EMT. However, in addition to that, the state that I took the test in, which my first EMT test was in 1994 in Alaska, I am also a certified EMT in Alaska. Now, while I was an EMT in Alaska, I moved to Idaho. Do you think that I was able to just move to Idaho with my national registry and my Alaska state certification and we're all good? No, absolutely not. That's not what happened. I had to retake my EMT test, and I had to take an EMT refresher when I got to Idaho so that I could become an Idaho EMT, even though I still had my national registry. And then when I moved from Idaho to Nevada, same thing. I let my national registry lapse. So I had to retake my national registry, and I got my Nevada EMT and my state and my national registry EMT. So, like, even though at one point in time I was nationally registered as an EMT, and that's the test that every EMT across the United States has to take, I couldn't really move it anywhere, right? When I came to Arizona, there was a little reprieve for me. Arizona and Nevada have like a reciprocity agreement between one another. So since I came from Nevada, I got my EMT in Arizona pretty easily. But there's tons of stuff out there that's like this. It's kind of silly. If you have such a thing as a national registry for EMTs, paramedics, or even doctors go through this, right? That's just one small inconvenience and inefficiency. I mean, it's very tiny in the grand scheme of things and where we are in the world. Imagine how it is in big industry. All right, I've yapped about this enough. My only point is that we could definitely be smarter about how we do things here in the United States and improve. Not to say we should let companies and industry do whatever they want, because that definitely is not the right answer. But we could, address the things that need to be addressed and make reasonable regulations for sure. All right, let's get to our final question, which is, by this time you've probably already heard it, but it is the blockbuster question. So let's end with that. Oh, and by the way, this is one of the 2 analyst questions that were asked, and it's a good question.
So briefly, could you just detail how Robotaxi will roll out? Will it start with a Tesla deployed fleet and then allow customers to add theirs on like a subscription model? And then will Hardware 3 be capable of level 5 FSD?
As regarding the Hardware 3, what we saw with 12.5 was it was easier to make rapid progress with starting with Hardware 4, then figuring out the solution, and then backporting it to Hardware 3 instead of directly working on Hardware 3, given that Hardware 4 has more like fundamental hardware capabilities. I think that trend will continue into the next few quarters as well, where we first figure out the solution rapidly with AI4 and then backport it, write the kernels. It just takes longer to develop those things because it's not fundamentally supported in the hardware and it's emulated. But yeah, it's initially working on Hardware 4, backporting it to Hardware 3.
Yeah, so it's, I guess the answer is we're not 100% sure, but our as Ashok mentioned, because by some measures, Hardware 4 has really several times the capability of Hardware 3. It's easier to get things to work with Hardware 4, and then it takes a lot of effort to sort of squeeze that functionality into Hardware 3. There is some chance that Hardware 3 does not achieve the safety level that allows for unsupervised FSD. There is some chance of that, and if that turns out to be the case, we will upgrade those who have bought Hardware 3 FSD for free. And we have designed the system to be upgradable. So, and it's really more, just to switch out the computer type of thing. Like the cameras are okay. They're capable, but anyway, we don't actually know the answer to that. But if it does turn out, we'll make sure we take care of those who have bought FSD on Hardware 3.
So it doesn't sound like level 5 autonomy is coming to vehicles equipped with Hardware 3. I have a vehicle equipped with Hardware 3, and that is a bummer. Maybe it'll affect the resale value. I don't really know. But we've been talking about how Tesla is pushing up against the boundaries of what Hardware 3 could effectively handle. And, they're having to make their code more efficient and really solve some problems even now with full self-driving software, which makes sense. Like it's not bad that Hardware 3 is not able to achieve full autonomy or might not be able to achieve full autonomy. That's not bad. What's bad is the promises made by Elon that it could. And I am a little heartened, not a little, I'm a lot heartened that they are willing to swap out the computer, right? And upgrade people to a hardware 4 and use the same cameras. But in the past, Tesla has said that they're not able to do this. In the past, they've literally said, this isn't something that we could do. It would be too hard. So we know that that's not the case. We know that it's not too hard. They're going to swap out the hardware, the computer system itself, and they're going to use the current cameras, and the current cameras are good enough. Man, can you see why this earnings call irked me? I try to stay as even as possible. But what really pushes my buttons is when people are taken advantage of, whether those be employees or customers, investors in this situation, and are sold a bill of goods that is not necessarily what they got. And I feel like Tesla's known this for a while, and they have been pushing a narrative that they've known to be incorrect. And I initially recorded something that went for another 3 minutes, but I deleted it. And I will just say, this makes me very disappointed. And I'll leave it at that. So if you want to email me, because that's our whole show today, you can do that. It's Bodie, BODIE at 918digital.com. You can also follow me on Twitter at 918digital. And hopefully the technical problems have been solved, and we will get a new episode to you out on Tuesday, an episode out on time on Friday, and we'll be back up and running like we were for so long. Like I was doing so good when it comes to getting these podcasts out, and then there's just a lot going on. And at some point in time, I will let you in on what's going on. Not bad things, just I'm very busy at the moment. So, and then throw all the technical issues that's been going on. It really slows down progress, if I'm being honest. So thank you everybody for listening. I hope you all have a wonderful week. I hope you all had a wonderful weekend, and I will talk to you on Tuesday.